Hello and welcome to this tutorial video about using Blender with Second Life and the the physics involved, how to create proper physics. Okay, I've done this extensively over the years, and I've watched an awful lot of tutorials online. And I've back in the day, we're talking 10, 15 years ago, I went in world and spent time trying to learn Blender and understand how people were getting the physics to work, right? And I've seen all sorts of things to do with physics using Blender. Mixture, people do tutorials on designing what they want in Blender, bringing it into Second Life, making it a phantom, and then building up around it with Prim, which is just absolutely crazy, and linking it all together. And okay, so it kind of all works, but it's an awful lot of hard work. What I've done over the years is learn how to get physics done really, really simply. Okay, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether it's a building, anything. It doesn't really matter what it is. You really should be making a physics model of whatever it is you're building in to bring the mesh into Second Life, because it has an impact on the land impact, the LI, right? We all know what that is. You can make the most amazing things in Blender and bring it into Second Life, and you'll have horrendous land impact. I mean, I've seen some really awful stuff, simple things like bookcases or simple bits of furniture. Anyway, I will stop waffling on. What I've done, I'm going to keep this quite simple, but I really wanted to focus on the things that were not said in all the tutorial videos that I've ever watched on YouTube about physics for Second Life from Blender, right? Now, I thought I would use something like this. This is just literally a bit of mesh, right? It's 6 meters by 3.8 meters by 0.518 meters. Okay, so this is nothing spectacular, but what is difficult is making this mesh, as everyone knows, and this is exactly what people want to do, is you want to have a doorway, right? So let's just imagine this is an arched doorway. Now, this makes it even more complicated for Second Life to try and figure out what to do with it, because of the way the triangles are. Obviously, Second Life talks in triangles, Blender talks in quads. So this is the added thing. And of course, you want to make nice doorways and arches and windows, and all of those nice fancy things are horrendous for Second Life to try and get the physics right. So what is it we do, right? So I've literally created this, very, very simple. And I'm going to be demonstrating all three different things that tend to happen that I experienced, and I know lots of other people have experienced, with trying to get mesh to work with physics in Second Life, and what's going on, what the hell is going on behind the scenes, and why things do not work, right? So the magic bit, create your mesh, right? Create your mesh. The magic bit is the physics model sitting behind it, right? Now, the physics model, you can see the outline there, okay? You can see the outline, okay? And all it is cubes, right? Let me just get rid of okay, so this is the physics model for that archway, right? Take this in, because this was not explained in any video that I ever had before, right? So what we're looking at here is three cubes. Effectively, I removed the sides because it lowers the amount of mesh for the physics, okay? And ideally what you're doing is you're creating the cubes to fit inside the model that you've just made. See how it's inside the model, right? And each of these physics, let's call them panels, these cubes, need to be separated. Okay, they have to have gaps in between them, right? So it doesn't necessarily matter as long as they're inside your model, right? They're not touching the sides or anything of your model, and they need to be separated. And all you do at the end of the day is you join them together when you're ready. Okay, so I've created three cubes here. They have to be separated, right? However you want to do that. You can slice and dice up a plane and do whatever you want with it. But this is the fundamental principle of physics inside Second Life. This very, very important. This is why I keep going on about this, because this is what makes the physics work. The gap in between each of these planes of mesh, right? And then they're joined together. Another fundamental thing that you need to remember as well, it doesn't necessarily matter where the origin is, okay? And now I've seen videos where it said, oh, the origin always has to be in, to the geometry, or it always has to be at the 3D cursor, or it always has to be the same origin as your original mesh. Now you can quite clearly see my origins are not the same. They're different, right? They're very, very slightly different. Okay, I don't know whether you can see that, but it doesn't really matter whether the origin is, I mean, if we say the 3D cursor is here, you've built your mesh around it, it doesn't matter. If your origin is at the 3D cursor, and it's probably a good idea to just make them all one or all the other. It doesn't really make any difference, because when you bring it into Second Life, it doesn't seem to make any difference with regard to physics. So quite key, right? The other things to bear in mind, always, your location doesn't really matter, but always just make sure you're scaling on all of your mesh that you've built, and also your physics is set to 0 or 1 rather. So you need to make sure that your scaling is accepted, has been reset, right? Now what you do is you grab your mesh, okay, and I'm going to run through this, but I'm not going to basically overwrite the files I've already done. But basically all you're going to do for Second Life is you hit your mesh, you highlight your mesh, your real building mesh, let's say, and you export it out as a Collada DAE file, which is legacy, all right? And then you give it a name, okay? So I called this Simple Arch, and it gives it DAE. Make sure you've got selection only, and then if you've got textures, like you want to copy the textures, okay? And then you just export that Collada, right? Then you highlight your physics model, right? And then you go File, Export, Collada, and then you give it the same name, but you put an underscore PHYS, okay? Very important. So this is the physics for this model. You're going to give it the same name, but you're going to put an underscore PHYS, which is short for physics. Obviously selection only, and you don't really need to select textures, but it doesn't really matter because it's not going to have one anyway, right? And then you click on export, right? Okay, we've now exported our mesh, and we've also exported the physics, right? We've got the mesh for the physics. Now we go into Second Life and we bring those into... Now I'm going to go through and show you what happens, right? Now I've got these 3 examples here set up, and we're going to go through and I'm going to show you the differences between just exporting out your your mesh with no physics, right? And then what Second Life's physics are like, right? And I'll demonstrate that as well. And then what the proper physics that we've just done, what that looks like. Okay, so let me go through the process. We're going to go upload mesh model, and the process is you select your mesh file. You don't have to do anything with the physics file because it picks it up automatically, because we've put underscore PHYS on there, right? So we click on open and boom, we get this dialog, and we can see, if we look, right, you can see the physics, and it's picked the physics file up from the file because it's underscore PHYS. It's automatically picked it up, right? And there we go. We can see the blue. If the physics button, if the physics tick isn't enabled, then you can click on it and it will show up, right? And you can see it there. Now, land impact. Land impact depends on not only the physics of your model, but also the detail level. Now, the detail level, again, I've watched videos about detail level. I've seen people say, oh, they always use the level of detail above, right? So like it says 92 triangles, and then the medium viewing distance and such like, the detail is going to be also 92, and then they don't, generally people don't bother with the other two. Now, the problem with that is it will increase land impact. Now, that's a decision you need to make. Generally, I've always found that I don't ever do this. I just leave it on auto. If it's something special, I will actually increase the LOD, right, the level of detail on an item, but generally not. Okay, so you give it a name, right, arch, and then you click on calculate. Boink. Okay, and then it tells you now land impact 1. This is a big piece of mesh here with quite a lot of detail in it, really. Okay, and I got a land impact of 1. That is just brilliant. Okay, and now I'll show you what each of these looks like. One, when there is no physics at all, right? So the red one here, the arch with no physics, I had to get rid of the PHYS file because it picks it up automatically. And then the second example here is when Second Life, if you look on here, you can select different levels that Second Life will try to, if you use cube, you see, that blocks the hole completely, and it just gives it, a physics of like a cube, obviously. And we've got low, which realistically could work. It's not brilliant, obviously. It's not very, and of course the bits that don't have physics, you're going to be able to walk through, right? You have to remember that. Medium, very much the same. Now, my red model, this model here that I'm going to demonstrate, the purple one, is this. Okay, this is Second Life's attempt at what it's calling as a high level of physics. Okay, now when you use Second Life's physics selection here, you have to click on analyze, and then it sort of makes this kind of mess. And again, okay, that's absolutely fine. You then recalculate the weights, and it says it's now increased the upload fee, but it's lowered the land impact, right? And that looks good, right? It looks good, but the reason why I picked a piece of mesh with an arch in it, we'll demonstrate, I'll show you in a minute, it doesn't work, right? Even though it looks like it says it's going to work, right? Because we can see through the hole, but it doesn't. Second Life can't cope with this kind of inverted commas complicated mesh. If it was a square hole, it probably would work, right? But why keep wasting your money when you can make your own physics really, really easily? So Okay, let me demonstrate now what each of these three look like. This one. So this is the arch with no physics at all, and I didn't select any of the Second Life physics either. And so you can't convert it to Prim, right? It can only ever be a convex hull. So if we click on Edit, we go to Features and switch on the physics shape type will only ever be convex hull. It can either be none, which means you can walk through it, or phantom, or convex hull. Okay, and this is what the physics looks like. So the blue kind of section that you're seeing, the blue shading. Why can't I move around? That's interesting. Okay, for some unknown reason, I can't seem to move around. Okay, something's gone wrong there. But you can kind of see the outline here of the physics that it applied to this object. So you're never going to be able to go through. This is the collision physics. You're never going to be able to go through that gap. It looks fine when you switch the view for physics off. You try walking through it. I don't know whether I can try and walk through it. I mean, it just won't let you go through, right? It's not letting me go through. But look what happens to the mesh that hasn't got the physics, right? You walk straight through it, and that's the problem, right? You walk straight through it. There's no collision, but I can't go through that. Let's look at the second one, which is an arch with Second Life's physics, but then converted to Prim, right? So if we switch the physics view on, we can see, look what happens. Now, according to, and of course now it's still convex hull. We convert it to Prim. Ooh, and there we get the other shading color. Again, physics has blocked the hole because it can't calculate out the physics correctly for something as complicated as an arch. And so we try to walk through this. Oh, hang on. We try to walk through this. Okay, it sort of works, but then it stops us walking through the wall. It's not brilliant, right? It's not really ideal. And look at the land impact. It's not ideal at all. It really isn't. If we make it a convex hull, we can't walk through it at all, right? The land impact is now going to be 1. But if we convert it to Prim, land impact has gone up drastically. But it's still not brilliant. It still isn't really very good, right? It's not ideal. Much better to create your own physics, and you'll see why. This is an arch with what I'm calling the proper physics that I just showed you in Blender. So we click on here. We've got convex hull, and we still have the same problem, right? Because Second Life can't work out what the physics are for a convex hull. Okay, and we can't walk through there. Okay, I can hear the collision, and we can't walk through the wall, right? If we now convert that, watch the Prim, the land impact. We convert it to Prim. Ooh, we're still 1 land impact. What are we on Second Life's version of exactly the same mesh and its own calculation? We're on 14, right? Very, very key. I just wish 10 years ago somebody had explained this. It makes such a big difference. And I just wonder how many people are doing the same thing. So our correct and proper physics, now you can see the physics the physics there, you see. So it's literally, although our physics model was on the inside of our mesh, Second Life calculates it out and says, okay, you know, this is going to be on the surface, and it works because we've separated it, right? So, and then if we look on the back, it's the same. Okay, we can't walk through the wall, right? Because the collision is there, but we can walk through perfectly well the archway, and we can't walk through this because obviously the physics are there. Now, the physics, if I very quickly go back to Blender, see, this is why I did this. Okay, so we cut down the amount of mesh, the faces, and we just leave the faces we want the collision on, right? Because if we only had one, what would happen is if I removed these faces on the back here, what would happen is I wouldn't be able to go through the wall one side, but what would happen is I would kind of half disappear through the prim until I hit the collision on the other side. So it's best to just have you know, faces on each side. So I really hope that that has explained how to create physics. Now, this is very simplified, but I think I've covered everything I really wish I had known kind of 10-15 years ago about physics for Second Life, because it would have saved so many hours and an awful lot of Linden's uploading and testing and getting really frustrated with why Second Life can't figure out physics for things properly. You know, it's just not ideal. Why have literally a wall like this with a hole in it that's 14 land impact when you can make it only 1? Anyone has any questions about anything? I mean, you know, you can make physics now. I might do another demonstration about physics, maybe for stairs or, you know, other things. I mean, you know, you can make the physics as simple. I like to keep things simple. But you can make the physics actually quite complicated so that you can go up through holes in floors, stairs and such like in houses, you know, through archways and all sorts of things. I mean, it's actually, once you understand how this works, you then, it just opens up the doors to designing all sorts of things that you want to put in Second Life with physics, you know. And again, physics reduces the land impact a lot. I hope that you found that useful, and if anyone would like to see another video demonstrating something else, then leave a message down below. Thanks for watching.